I woke up at 3 in the morning to an odd sound echoing from the backyard. Confused, I rose and crept to my bedroom window. What I saw froze me in place. My son, Daniel, and my daughter-in-law, Emily, were out there, clutching a flashlight, frantically burying something in the earth. Their movements were hurried, almost panicked, as if they were committing a grave offense. I stood hidden behind the curtain, watching the two people I trusted most in the world act in secrecy under the cover of night. When they finished, they hastily covered the hole and slipped back into the house, moving like shadows fleeing discovery. I waited until they left for work the next morning. My heart hadn't stopped racing since that chilling sight. Grabbing a shovel, I went straight to the spot they'd disturbed. The soil was loose, freshly turned. With trembling hands, I began to dig, my mind reeling with uncertainty about what I might find. When I finally unearthed the buried object, the shock nearly overwhelmed me. I staggered, barely able to process what lay before me. It was something that would unravel everything I believed about my family, my life, and the people I had loved and protected for decades. To understand why this discovery shattered my soul, you need to know who I am. My name is Robert Harrison. I'm 71 years old, and I've always been a man who gives everything for his family. The kind of man who sacrifices without expecting anything in return, who places the needs of others above his own. Daniel came into my life when he was just 3 years old. His mother had died in a tragic car accident, leaving him alone in the world. My heart broke when I first saw him at that orphanage, so small, so lost, so desperate for love. My wife and I couldn't have children of our own, so we adopted him without a second thought. From that moment, Daniel became the center of my universe. I poured all the love I had stored in my longing heart into him. I raised him as if he were my own flesh and blood, shielding him from harm, teaching him the best values I could impart, working tirelessly to give him the finest life possible. When he turned 21, I even put this farm in his name alongside mine, ensuring he felt fully part of our family. 5 years ago, he married Emily. At first, I admired her. She seemed polite, hardworking, and genuinely devoted to my son. But over time, I noticed troubling signs subtle. Dismissive comments about my age, suggestions that perhaps it was time for me to move to a retirement home, furtive glances exchanged with Daniel when they thought I wasn't watching. My wife passed away 7 years ago, and since then, I've lived alone in the home. We built together a beautiful farm on the outskirts of a small town in Montana, spanning 5 acres, with a charming country house worth a small fortune. During these years of widowhood, Daniel and Emily began visiting more frequently. Initially, I believed it was out of concern, a desire to care for their grieving father. How naive I was to trust their intentions were pure. Now, with what I found buried in my backyard, the truth was dawning in the most painful way possible. In the weeks leading up to that night, I had noticed Daniel growing tense, restless. Emily's behavior was off too, as if they were plotting something behind my back. I overheard them whispering in the kitchen, only to fall silent when I entered. I caught them reviewing papers they quickly hid as I approached. That night, seeing them bury something at 3 in the morning, the pieces of the puzzle began to snap together in the most terrifying way. But what I uncovered surpassed even my worst fears. When I pulled that object from the ground and saw what it was, I realized the two people I trusted most had betrayed me in the vilest way imaginable. What I held in my hands was proof that everything I believed about my family was a lie. My life's foundation, built over decades, was crumbling before me, and this was only the beginning of the nightmare to come. The buried item was a collection of documents, not just any papers, but ones I kept in my personal safe, accessible only to me, never meant to leave my study. They included my original will, the property deeds to the farm, my life insurance policy, and, most disturbingly, a letter I had written 4 years ago to an attorney, expressing my growing suspicions about Daniel and Emily's strange behavior. My hands trembled as I recognized my own handwriting in that unsent letter, a private outpouring where I confessed my fears that Daniel no longer saw me as his father, but as an obstacle, an old burden standing between him and my inheritance. It became clear Daniel had violated my privacy, somehow accessed my safe, read my most intimate thoughts, and decided to bury the evidence to prevent me from using it against him legally. He thought that by making those documents disappear, I'd have no way to protect myself from their plans. But he made a fatal mistake. He didn't know I had copies of every document stored elsewhere. He was unaware that, sensing trouble over the past 6 months, I had taken precautions. And he certainly didn't know about the secret bank account holding over $300,000. Proceeds from selling properties I inherited from my sister last year. Daniel was always sharp, but he completely underestimated his adoptive father. He saw me as a foolish, trusting old man who would swallow any lie. He was about to discover how wrong he was. The next day, when they arrived for our usual Sunday dinner, I saw them through new eyes. No longer my beloved son and his wife, but two predators plotting my ruin while I served them food with fatherly care. Daniel sat at the table with that fake smile I now recognized all too well. Emily didn't even bother, hiding her contempt, helping herself to the roast I'd prepared so carefully, as if I were her personal servant. "Dad," Daniel began in a syrupy tone, "Emily and I have been thinking about your situation here on the farm. This place is too big for someone your age to manage alone. The upkeep must be draining you financially." Emily nodded with crocodile tears. "Yes, Robert, living so isolated isn't good for you. You should be around people your age, in a place with proper medical care." Their words cut like poisoned knives, framing my future as if I were a burden, my well-being an inconvenience. The worst part was the act the way they feigned concern when all they wanted was to cast me aside. "What do you propose?" I asked calmly, though rage and pain churned within me. Daniel exchanged a quick glance with Emily before answering. "We've found some excellent retirement communities in the city, places where you can socialize, enjoy activities, have 24-hour medical care, and of course," Emily added with a venomous smile, "we'd take care of selling the farm to cover those costs. You'd never worry about money again." Their plan was laid bare without shame: commit me to a retirement home and claim my property. They wanted to sell the home where I'd been happy with my wife, where I'd raised Daniel, where I held my most precious memories. "And if I don't want to leave my home?" I asked, keeping my composure, though my heart pounded. Daniel's mask began to crack, His smile turned tense. Forced? Dad, don't be stubborn. You're not young anymore. Accidents can happen. What if you fall and no one finds you for days? What if you have a health crisis alone? Besides, Emily cut in sharply, maintaining this farm is costly. Taxes, repairs, utilities your pension can't sustain it. You're living beyond your means. Their calculated arguments painted me as a financial and emotional liability, as if agreeing to their plan was the only logical choice. I need time to think, I said at last. Daniel slammed his fist on the table, revealing his true face, a man frustrated because his prey wasn't complying. Time for what? Dad, to keep being obstinate. You're not 20 anymore. You can't make decisions like you'll live forever. Daniel's right, Emily added coldly. At your age, big decisions should be made by younger, more capable people, those who understand finances and planning. Their words hit like slaps, treating me as a senile fool, unable to manage my life, as if aging stripped away my right to choose my future. But what hurt most was that this came from Daniel the boy I'd raised, loved, and sacrificed everything for, whose dreams I'd put before my own. That night, after they left, I stayed up late, replaying every word, every disrespectful gesture, every calculated phrase meant to belittle me. That's when I made the most significant decision of my life. If they wanted to play dirty, I'd show them how to play this game. They had no idea who they were dealing with. Over the next few days, Daniel and Emily intensified their psychological campaign, mistaking my silence for weakness, a sign I was yielding. They didn't know each cruel word only strengthened my resolve to defeat them completely. On Tuesday morning, Emily arrived unannounced, dropping a stack of brochures on my kitchen table like orders I had to obey. Look, Robert, I've done all the work for you. These are the 3 best retirement homes I found. They have senior activities, meals included, round-the-clock medical care, even a salon on site. She spoke of these places like they were luxury resorts, as if locking me away with other abandoned elders was the grand prize I'd been waiting for. They're a bit expensive, she continued with fake concern. But don't worry. Once we sell the farm, you'll have enough to pay for years in advance, with plenty left over for Daniel and me to help with any extra costs. The audacity left me speechless. They not only planned to steal my home, but had the gall to act as if keeping the sale proceeds was part of caring for me. And where will you live in the meantime? I asked neutrally. Emily smiled with that smug look I knew too well. Obviously. We'll stay here until the farm sells. Someone has to keep it presentable for buyers. Daniel's taking time off work to focus on the sale. The perfect plan oust me while they settled in as the new owners, living comfortably at my expense while I rotted in a retirement home paid for with my own money. Besides, she added firmly, this house needs major repairs before it can sell well. The roof leaks, the siding's old, the garden's neglected. It'll take a big investment to fix it up. It was astounding how she shifted from feigned care to openly criticizing my home, the place I'd kept pristine for decades, now deemed a disaster, needing her intervention. That night, Daniel arrived with a completely different demeanor. The loving son facade was gone. Dad, enough stalling. Emily and I have made a decision. Next week, you'll visit the 3 homes she picked and choose one. It's not a suggestion, it's happening. His tone was commanding, like he was ordering a disobedient employee. And if I refuse, I asked, the recorder running in my pocket, Daniel stepped closer, his expression chilling. In his eyes, I saw something new, pure contempt for the man who'd raised him. You won't refuse, Dad. At your age, living alone in this big house, accidents can happen. Stairs are risky for someone older. Floors can be slippery. Medications can get mixed up. His words were thinly veiled threats, implying that if I didn't comply, they'd ensure an accident gave them control over my life and assets. Besides, he continued icily, I've already spoken to Dr. Carter about your mental state. I told him you've been showing signs of confusion, forgetfulness, irrational decisions. He's very concerned about your ability to live independently. Dr. Carter, our family doctor for years, had always treated me with respect. The idea that Daniel lied to him about my mental health ignited a fury I didn't know I possessed. You lied to Dr. Carter about me, I asked, voice trembling with rage. I didn't lie. He replied, I told the truth about a 71-year-old man refusing to accept his reality, a man acting like he's 30. That's the definition of mental decline. Emily joined in with a cruel smile. Doctor, Carter agrees with us. He says it's common at your age denial, stubbornness, inability to make rational choices. He even mentioned we could get a court order, if needed. A court order to declare me incompetent and seize my assets legally. They plan to use the system to rob me of everything I'd built. What pension are you talking about? Emily mocked when I mentioned my income. You barely have a pension. You live on Social Security and savings that are nearly gone. What money do you think can maintain this farm? Lie after lie. My financial situation was solid, but they'd crafted a narrative of a broke, delusional old man needing rescue from his own decisions. Dad, Daniel said condescendingly, we know it's hard to accept you can't care for yourself anymore. But that's why we're here to make the tough decisions you can't. Exactly, Emily added. We love you. That's why we're sacrificing our time and energy to fix this. Other kids would have called social services and walked away. They presented their theft as an act of love, as if stripping me of my home and dignity was a noble sacrifice I should thank them for. That night, after they left, I sat in the living room where I'd shared my happiest moments with my wife, watched Daniel grow, celebrated his successes, and grieved his sorrows as my own. Now, that same boy, now 36, wanted to erase those memories, turn my home into cash, and discard me in the cheapest place possible. But I had a secret. They didn't suspect a set of trump cards that would change the game entirely. It was time to play them. What Daniel and Emily didn't know was that for the past 8 months, I'd been preparing. Every odd conversation, every scheming glance, every comment about my age had set off alarms. So, I began recording our talks. I had a small recorder my late wife used for her business meetings, found among her belongings. I kept it, never imagining I'd need it to protect myself from my own son. For weeks, I discreetly recorded every visit, capturing hours of audio that laid bare their plan to steal my home, their threats, their lies about my mental state, and their true feelings about me. But that wasn't all. A month earlier, sensing danger, I'd visited a new attorney in a nearby city, one Daniel didn't know. I explained everything, and he helped me secure my assets cleverly. First, I transferred half my savings to a new bank account under a corporation he set up for me. Second, I revised my will, leaving everything to a charitable foundation except a small sum for Daniel. Third, I prepared a sworn statement detailing their threats and scheme. I also had another ace 10 months ago. My childless sister died, leaving me a property in Seattle worth $700,000. I'd kept this inheritance secret, sensing it might be my escape route. The property was being quietly remodeled a luxury condo in downtown Seattle with round-the-clock security, nearby medical services, and, most importantly, far from Daniel and Emily's reach. On Thursday morning, Daniel arrived with papers in hand, his attitude more aggressive than ever. He dropped all pretense of courtesy, treating me like a rebel to be subdued. Dad, no more games. I brought the forms for the 3 retirement homes. You'll fill them out now, and Monday we start the visits. No more discussion. He tossed the papers onto the table like a death sentence forms, asking about my medical history, income, assets, and family guardians, all designed to label me a burden needing institutionalization. And if I refused to sign, I asked, "Recorder running?" Daniel approached with a look that chilled me. "You won't refuse, Dad. If you do, tomorrow, I'm calling social services, reporting your mental decline, how you skip meals, forget your meds, have hallucinations." "Hallucinations?" I asked, incredulous. "Yes. Dad, like when you said you saw Mom in a garden, or claimed I was going through your things, clearly psychotic behavior needing immediate attention." It was brilliant, turning my moments of nostalgia and justified suspicions into dementia symptoms, building a false narrative to strip my rights. Emily entered the kitchen, as if on cue. "Robert, I spoke with the director at Peaceful Pines. It's the best of the 3 gardens. Activities, even a salon. You could move in next week." "Next week?" I exclaimed. "Yes," Daniel snapped. "We've wasted enough time on your tantrums. Emily and I have lives to live. We can't keep spending weekends convincing you of the obvious." There it was, the raw truth. I was an inconvenience disrupting their plans, an old man standing in the way of their comfort. They no longer pretended to care. Besides, Emily added cruelly, at Peaceful Pines, you'll be with people your age who understand what it's like to be old, to be good for nothing but getting in the way. Her words were like blows, declaring my uselessness, my role to vanish quietly so as not to burden the young and productive. "Is this what I'm worth to you?" I asked, voice choked with emotion. "An old man, good for nothing but getting in the way," Daniel sighed, as if explaining reality to a fool was exhausting. "Dad, it's not about worth. It's about being realistic. You're 71. Your body's not the same. Your mind's not the same. It's normal to need specialized help. Pretending you can live like you're 40 is abnormal. And we have our own lives," Emily added without a trace of compassion. "Daniel works 60 hours a week. I have my job, my responsibilities. We can't keep coming here to care for someone who refuses help." They turned the tables, casting themselves as victims sacrificing for a stubborn, ungrateful old man. "And if I don't want to leave my home?" I asked, emphasizing my... Daniel's reaction was explosive. He slammed the table, glasses rattling. "Enough, I'm done with your whims. This house is too much for you. Period. The costs are too much for your measly pension. Period. Your mental health is failing. Period. Sign these papers voluntarily, or I'll get a court order declaring you incompetent. Daniel's right, Emily said icily. We've been patient enough. Other kids would have had you locked away months ago. But we're giving you the chance to do this with dignity. Dignity they wanted me to thank them for robbing me with dignity, for destroying my life courteously. What if I show I have no financial problems, I asked. What if I prove I can maintain this property? Daniel laughed sarcastically. With what money? Dad, your account has less than $12,000. Taxes on this farm are $6,000 a year. Maintenance is at least $4,000 annually. Utilities, another $400. Your pension is $900 a month. Where's the math that supports this? He'd clearly accessed my finances illegally, but didn't know about my secret account. My sister's inheritance, or the investments I'd made with my attorney. Dad, he said, voice dripping with condescension. We get that it's hard to accept you can't care for yourself, but that's why we're here to make decisions. You can't. That was the final straw. Seeing my adoptive son, raised with so much love, treat me as a mental invalid gave me the strength to execute my plan. All right, I said. You're right. Maybe it's time I retire for good. They exchanged triumphant smiles, thinking they'd broken me, unaware I'd just declared war. I'm retiring. It's final, I repeated firmly, watching their faces light up with malicious glee. They thought they'd won. They didn't know I'd ignited the most devastating phase of my counterattack. That afternoon, after they left celebrating their supposed victory, I called my attorney. Thomas, it's time. Execute the plan tomorrow. The next morning, a moving company arrived. Discreet, professional, in hours. They packed my most valuable possessions, jewelry, critical documents, family keepsakes, everything that mattered. They shipped it all to my Seattle condo. Then I drove to the bank with my secret account, withdrawing $75,000 in cash to cover the coming months of my revenge. Daniel and Emily thought I was a resourceless old man. They were about to learn how mistaken they were. My Seattle condo was stunning 2 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, a modern kitchen, a balcony with a city view, constant security, and, crucially, under a corporation Daniel could never trace. It was my secret fortress, my base for the war about to begin. On Monday, Daniel arrived at the farm, expecting to find me packing sadly for the retirement home. Instead, he found a note on the door. Gone to reflect on my retirement. I'll return when ready. Don't look for me. My neighbor, Susan, later told me Daniel went berserk, screaming, cursing, calling my phone desperately. Emily rushed over, and they searched the house for clues. They didn't find my new will, legal documents, or recordings, all safe in Seattle. They found the house stripped of valuables and a bank account with exactly $400, hiding my true resources for 3 days. Daniel called relentlessly, first with sweet manipulation. Dad, we're so worried. Where are you? Are you okay? Come home. We can talk. When I didn't answer, his voicemails turned aggressive. Dad, this is ridiculous. You're 71. You can't wander like a rebellious teen. Come back now, or we're calling the police. On the 4th day, I answered one call, voice feigning exhaustion. Daniel, son, you're right. I can't keep running from reality. I'm in a cheap motel here in town, burning through my last savings. I can't take it anymore. What motel will come get you? He said, relieved. No, don't. I'll return to the farm tomorrow. But I need 1 week to say goodbye to the house, to process this emotionally. 1 week. Then I'll sign whatever you want. He agreed instantly, thinking 1 week a small price for his prize. He didn't know it was enough to destroy him. On Friday, I returned not alone. I arrived in a luxury taxi, dressed in fine clothes bought in Seattle, hair professionally styled, exuding a new confidence. I was no longer the broken old man they'd humiliated. Daniel and Emily waited in the living room with the retirement home papers ready. Their smug expressions vanished when they saw me. Something in my presence told them everything had changed. "Dad, you look different," Daniel said. "Suspicious." "I feel different," I replied, smiling for the first time in months. I've had time to think, to reflect on my life, my choices, the people who truly love me. Emily frowned. "What do you mean?" "I mean, I remembered who I am. I'm not the useless old man you've tried to make me believe I am. I'm Robert Harrison, owner of 2 properties, with a robust bank account, and connections you can't even fathom." Their faces paled as they processed my words. Daniel stood abruptly. "What?" "2 properties. What bank account?" I pulled out a document, prepared for this moment, the deed to my Seattle condo. Fully paid, valued at $700,000. This property I inherited from my sister 10 months ago. I thought about telling my adoptive son, but then I realized he was too busy planning to steal my farm to care about my other assets. The word adoptive hit like a slap. Daniel froze. Realizing I knew about the buried documents, his attempt to hide his legal status. How do you know about this?" he stammered. "Your adoption, I've always known." "Dear, I'm the one who adopted you. Remember, what I didn't know was that you'd found the original documents and buried them in my backyard to keep me from using them against you." Emily stood, pale as a ghost. "That's impossible. Those documents are buried." "Not anymore," I said. "I dug them up the night I saw you hiding them. I photographed them, scanned them, sent them to my attorney, and stored them in a safe deposit box, along with recordings of our conversations from the past few weeks." The silence was deafening. They looked at each other in panic, realizing their victim was far more prepared than they'd imagined. "Recordings," Daniel whispered, voice breaking. "Recordings of you threatening accidents if I don't comply. Recordings of you planning to steal my home. Recordings where you insult me, humiliate me, treat me like garbage. Recordings where Emily says I'm only good for getting in the way." I watched the reality sink in their poisonous words, threats, and schemes captured legally. "Dad, we can explain. It wasn't our intention," Daniel said desperately. "Not your intention to rob me, threaten me, lie to Dr. Carter about my mental health, plan to declare me incompetent to take my assets." Each question was a dagger to their plan. I knew everything they'd done, everything they'd planned, and I had the evidence. Emily tried a last desperate plea. "Robert, you're misunderstanding. We only wanted to help you. Everything was for your own good." I laughed a genuine, liberating laugh. "For my own good, stealing. My home is for my good, locking me in a retirement home against my will. is for my good. Lying about my sanity is for my good. Daniel tried to approach, but my expression stopped him cold. I'm no longer the man you thought you could manipulate, I said, voice like steel. Now, I'm your nightmare. Your nightmare. Daniel tried to regain control, voice trembling. Dad, you're blowing this out of proportion. Sit down. Let's talk like civilized adults. Civilized, I said with irony. Like when you threatened me with stair accidents, or when Emily said I'm good for nothing but getting in the way. I pulled out my phone and played a recording. Daniel's voice filled the room. At your age, living alone in this big house, accidents can happen. Stairs are dangerous for someone older. Daniel collapsed onto the couch, hearing his own threats. Emily turned white as a sheet. Should I keep going? I asked, smiling as they trembled. I played another, Emily's voice. You'll be with people your age, who understand what it's like to be old, to be good for nothing, but getting in the way. This is illegal, Emily stammered. You can't record private conversations without our consent. Illegal, I laughed. I'm in my own home. I can record anything I want. But you know what's illegal. Threatening an elderly person, conspiring to commit fraud, trying to illegally seize assets. Daniel stood abruptly. What do you want, money name your price, to forget this? Money, I said, incredulous. You think after all the humiliation, the plots to steal my home. This is about money. Emily tried another tactic. Robert, we're family. Families forgive. Work through problems together. We can't destroy ourselves over a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding, I said, voice icy. Planning to declare me incompetent is a misunderstanding. Threatening me with accidents is a misunderstanding. I pulled out a copy of the report my attorney had prepared, detailing their elder abuse crimes. This is with the prosecutor's psychological abuse, threats of violence, conspiracy to commit fraud, attempted illegal asset seizure. Do you know how many years in prison these carry? Daniel collapsed entirely. Dad, please, I'm your son. You raised me, loved me. You can't do this. My son, I said, voice choked but firm. My son wouldn't threaten me. My son wouldn't plan to rob me. My son wouldn't treat me like trash. You're not my son. You're a stranger who lived in my home for 33 years, pretending to love me. The words came from the depths of my pain, years of unreturned love, unappreciated sacrifices, silent humiliations. You raised a monster who turned on you, I added, locking eyes with him. A monster who saw his adoptive father as a walking bank account. Emily tried to recover ground. All right, we mishandled things, but we can fix this. Family therapy. I cut her off, so a therapist can explain why my son wants to steal my home, so I can learn to accept threats of violence. I walked to the window, where I'd seen them burying the documents that night. The image of their betrayal was seared into my mind. Do you know what hurts most? I asked, not turning around. It's not that you want my money or my house. It's that you never truly loved me. For 33 years, you pretended to love me while waiting for me to die to claim my assets. That's not true, Daniel protested weakly. I turned, my expression making him step back. Not true. Explain why you only visit when you need something. Explain why every conversation is about my age, my limitations, my uselessness. Explain why your first thought when I was alone was how to exploit my vulnerability. The silence was crushing. They had no answers because every word was true. And there's more, I said, voice hardening. Doctor, Carter never believed your lies about my mental state. Daniel paled, grasping the implications. Yes, I visited him myself. Showed him the recordings where you planned to use lies to have me declared incompetent. He's furious. A respected doctor whose reputation you tried to use for your criminal lies. Doctor, Carter filed a report correcting your falsehoods. I continued. He provided a full evaluation confirming I'm perfectly capable of managing my affairs mentally and physically. Emily began to cry, not from remorse, but panic as their lies unraveled. Robert, please, can we fix this? Can we give everything back? Give back what I snapped. The dignity you stole. The sleepless nights from your threats. The trust I had in my family. I approached the table where their retirement home forms still lay. I picked them up and tore them into pieces before their eyes. This is what I think of your plans to lock me away. And this is what I think of you as family. Daniel tried one last plea. Dad, I'm your son. You adopted me at 3, raised me, loved me. That has to mean something. It meant everything to me. I said, voice breaking but resolute. That's why it hurts so much. I loved you like my own. I'd have given my life for you. Your successes were mine. Your pains hurt me more than my own. My words hit like blows. But you turned my love into weakness. You used my affection to manipulate me. You saw my generosity as stupidity, my age as an opportunity. It's not like that. Dad, he pleaded. Then explain this recording, I said, playing another. Daniel's voice, Emily, when the old man dies, we'll be rich. This farm's worth a fortune. The silence was absolute. Daniel collapsed, as if shot. Emily sobbed not from regret, but panic at their crumbling future. Please, Dad, Daniel begged. Can we explain? We were speaking hypothetically. Hypothetically, I cut in, voice like steel. Planning my death for my inheritance is hypothetical. Calling me, the old man, is a term of endearment. I dialed a number I'd waited weeks to use. Thomas, it's Robert. I have the confessions we needed. Activate everything now. Daniel jumped up. Who are you calling my attorney, the one you couldn't find? The one who's documented your crimes? I hung up, smiling as they trembled. Right now, 3 legal actions are launching against you. First, a civil suit for psychological abuse and threats against an elderly person. Second, a criminal complaint for conspiracy to commit fraud and illegal asset seizure. Third, a restraining order barring you from approaching me or my property. Their faces drained of color. And that's not all, I said, savoring their fear. I've also filed a defamation lawsuit for the lies you told Dr. Carter about my mental state. Emily staggered to her feet. This is insane. You can't ruin our lives over a family misunderstanding. A misunderstanding, I said, incredulous. Threatening to kill me is a misunderstanding. Planning to steal my inheritance is a minor issue Daniel tried to approach. But my look stopped him. Dad, please, I'm all you have. Without me, you'll be alone. His words hurt, but not as he intended. They showed how little he knew me. Alone, I laughed. Liberated. Being away from people who hate and want to rob me is alone for the first time in years. I feel supported by my dignity, my self-respect, my strength. I pulled out another document. And I'm not alone. I have real friends who value me without ulterior motives. It was a letter from the book club I'd joined in Seattle, peers who became true friends, appreciating me for who I am. The difference between my friends and you, I asked? They're happy when I arrive. You're happy when I leave. They enjoy my company. You tolerate my existence. They see me as valuable. You see me as a bank account. Daniel slumped onto the couch, realizing he'd lost all control. What do you want us to do? He asked, defeated. What do I want? I said thoughtfully. Leave my house immediately and never return. Return your keys. Remove your belongings by noon. And then Emily asked, voice shaking, then you face the legal consequences? Explain to a judge why you threatened a 71-year-old. Explain to a prosecutor why you planned to steal my property. Explain to a jury why you saw my death as a financial opportunity. The reality hit them hard. No escape. No negotiation. No way to call it a misunderstanding. But there's more, I said, smiling as they paled further. My book club includes a retired journalist from a major Seattle paper. She found your story fascinating. Daniel leapt up. What do you mean? I mean the tale of an adoptive son threatening and robbing his father will be front-page news Sunday. Son plans to kill father who saved him from orphanage, catchy title. Don't you think Emily began to hyperventilate? You can't, she gasped. Daniel has a job, a reputation. I work at a school. This will destroy our careers. Your careers, I said, feigning surprise. You're worried about careers. You weren't worried about my life when planning accidents or my well-being when plotting to lock me away. Daniel tried one last plea. Dad, we can leave the country, disappear. Never bother you again. Just don't ruin us publicly. Leave the country, I laughed. As fugitives, that's your solution, flee like criminals. Please, Emily begged. We're young. We can change. Young, I said with irony. Daniel's 36. You're 33, not teenagers pulling a prank. Adults who plan to rob and abuse an elderly man. I opened the front door wide. You have 5 minutes to leave my property. If not, I'll call the police for trespassing. Daniel approached, tears in his eyes. Dad, you raised me. I loved you. No, I said firmly. I raised you. I loved you. You pretended to love me while waiting for my death to inherit. There's a difference. Please. One last chance, he pleaded. A chance for what? To threaten more subtly, rob more discreetly, plan my death more carefully. Emily tried to hug me, but I stepped back. Don't touch me. You lost that right when you saw my life as an obstacle to my money. Daniel gathered the torn retirement home papers, staring at them in despair, his last link to their failed plan. The irony, I said, as they collected their things. If you'd loved me genuinely, treated me with respect, I'd have left you everything willingly when I died. Your greed blinded you, destroying the one thing that could have given you what you wanted. The truth hit like a hammer. They realized their avarice had ruined their legitimate chance. Now, I said, checking my watch, you have 3.5 minutes before I call the police. I watched them leave like the criminals they were, dragging their belongings and shattered dignity. When Daniel turned back at the door, my eyes made him see that the man who raised, loved, and protected him for 33 years was gone to him forever. Goodbye, Daniel, I said, voice final. May you have the life you deserve. I closed the door. A week later, Daniel made one last desperate move. Barred from contacting me by the restraining order, he did something that proved he'd learned nothing. He created a social media profile and began live streaming to manipulate public opinion. My neighbor, Susan, called, alarmed. Robert, you need to see this. Daniel's live online, saying terrible things about you. I logged in from my Seattle condo and couldn't believe it. There he was, in a cheap apartment, eyes red from crying, speaking to the camera in a broken voice. My adoptive father has lost his mind, he said, fake tears streaming. The man who raised and loved me for 33 years now accuses me of things I never did. His age is clouding his judgment, distorting reality. Comments poured in with sympathy. Poor guy. Old people get paranoid sometimes. It must hurt to see your father like this. Daniel continued his act. Emily and I only wanted to help. We saw he couldn't manage that big farm alone, spending money he didn't have on a property too demanding for him. We wanted him safe, cared for by professionals. But when we suggested retirement homes, he saw us as criminals. Now he claims we threatened him, want to steal, plan to harm him. It's heartbreaking to see his mind create these paranoid delusions. The comments grew. Your father's sick. Son, dementia is awful. Get him medical help. Daniel fueled the narrative. The worst part is he's now got lawyers exploiting his confusion, filling his head with ideas of lawsuits and legal action. They're preying on a vulnerable old man for money. It was a masterful performance, every word crafted to paint him as the victim of a senile father and greedy lawyers. Every tear timed for maximum sympathy. If anyone knows my father, Robert Harrison, please tell him I love him. We'll always love him. No matter what his illness makes him believe, I'm here, waiting for the day he regains clarity and becomes the caring father he was. Comments were overwhelmingly supportive. You're a great son. Your father's lucky. Don't give up. Love prevails. That's when I decided to join the game. I created a profile on the same platform and started my own live stream. Within minutes, Daniel's followers found me, and comments flooded in. Hello? I said, voice calm and clear. I'm Robert Harrison, the senile father Daniel speaks of, and I have some things to share. Comments erupted. It's him, the crazy father. Poor thing. He doesn't know what he's saying. First, I continued firmly. I'm perfectly sane. Here's a medical certificate from Dr. Carter, dated last week, confirming I'm mentally and physically capable of managing my affairs. I held the document to the camera, showing the official seal. Second, I want you to hear recordings of conversations with my dear adoptive son, so you can decide who's telling the truth. I played the first recording, Daniel's voice. At your age, living alone in this big house, accidents can happen. Stairs are dangerous for someone older. Comments shifted instantly. What was that? That sounded like a threat. Is he threatening his father? I explained calmly. Now, listen to this one. I played Daniel Emily. When the old man dies, we'll be rich. This farm's worth a fortune. The reaction was explosive. My God, what a horrible son. He's planning to rob him. I have hours of these, I continued. Recordings of them planning to declare me incompetent, discussing how to sell my property, calling me the old man, planning my death as a financial event. Comments became a torrent of outrage against Daniel. What a monster. Poor man. How could he do this to his father? That's not all, I added. I have this. I showed photos of the documents they buried. These are legal documents my son stole from my safe and buried in my backyard at 3 a.m., planning to use them to declare me incompetent and take my assets. Comments turned furious. Call the police. He's a criminal. What a nightmare. And finally, I said, smiling, something Daniel doesn't know I have. I held up the Seattle condo deed. This property, inherited 10 months ago, is worth $700,000. Music played softly in the background. Daniel didn't know about this when planning to steal my farm? Turns out, the senile old man owns 2 properties and a bank account he never imagined. Comments exploded. What a twist. This man's smarter than his son. Daniel's a fool and a criminal. Oh, I added casually. And I'm part owner of 3 local businesses bought with my inheritance. Turns out, this helpless old man has assets over $2 million. The broadcast went viral in real time, comments pouring in too fast to read, all supporting me and condemning Daniel. To close, I said, looking into the camera, a message to my adoptive son, who's surely watching. Daniel, you said your father's gone mad. You're right. I was mad to let you disrespect me for 33 years, to sacrifice my well-being for someone who saw my death as a business opportunity. I paused dramatically, but I've regained my sanity, and with it, the resolve to ensure you face the legal consequences of your actions. The documents I gave the prosecutor include these recordings. Monday morning, you'll be arrested for elder abuse, threats of violence, and conspiracy to commit fraud. Comments celebrated. Justice. Arrest him. You're a warrior, Robert. To everyone watching, I continued, know that we elderly aren't helpless victims. We can be smart, prepared, and when needed, ruthless in defending our dignity. I ended the stream with over 60,000 viewers and thousands of supportive comments. Within an hour, clips of my broadcast spread across social media. Daniel's attempt to ruin my reputation had backfired spectacularly, his stream becoming a source of mockery. Comments on his video shifted liar. Your father destroyed you. Shameful. He'd lost the digital war in humiliating fashion. On Monday, as promised, Daniel was arrested at his apartment. Local news aired the footage the son who tried to rob and abuse his adoptive father, handcuffed, neighbors watching in contempt. Emily was arrested at her workplace, her school suspending her immediately upon learning of the charges a teacher accused of elder abuse wasn't their desired image. True justice came 3 months later at the public trial. The prosecutor built an airtight case with my recordings. The buried documents, Dr. Carter's testimony, and their lies about my mental state. Testifying was the most gratifying moment of this ordeal. I entered the courtroom in a sharp gray suit bought for the occasion, carrying a briefcase with evidence of my true assets, my dignity fully restored. Daniel sat at the defendant's table, a shadow of the man who thought he controlled my life thinner, dark circles under his eyes, his cheap suit unable to hide his desperation. When the prosecutor asked me to recount the events, I spoke clearly and firmly, each word a hammer of justice. For months, The defendant systematically planned to strip me of my assets and freedom. I began. They used my age to treat me as mentally incompetent, threatened my physical safety, lied to medical professionals for false documentation, and planned my death as a financial convenience. The jury listened in horror as the recordings played. Daniel's voice, "When the old man dies, we'll be rich," rang out like a confession. When the defense attorney cross-examined, he tried to portray me as vengeful, misinterpreting my son's care. "Mr. Harrison," he asked condescendingly, "couldn't you have mistaken your son's genuine concern for your well-being?" My response was devastating. "Counselor, when someone plans your death for your inheritance, threatens accidents, steals documents from your safe, lies to doctors about your sanity, and calls you the old man who should die soon, there's no mistaking it. That's criminal intent." He tried another angle. "Isn't it possible your son was worried because you, at 71, live alone on a large property?" "My age isn't a disability," I replied firmly. "My ability to live independently is medically documented. More importantly, my financial capacity to sustain my lifestyle is proven." The prosecutor then had me reveal my true finances. With satisfaction, I presented the court with documents of my assets. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury," I addressed them. "Besides the farm the defendants wanted to steal, I own a Seattle condo worth $700,000. I have bank accounts totaling $400,000 and part ownership in 3 businesses generating $6,000 monthly." The room fell silent. Daniel slumped, hearing numbers he'd never imagined. "The defendants," I continued, "planned to rob a man they thought vulnerable and broke. In truth, they tried to defraud someone with assets exceeding $2.5 million. Their criminal incompetence matches their lack of morals." The verdict was swift and unanimous. Daniel received 7 years in prison for elder abuse, threats, and fraud conspiracy. Emily got 4 years for complicity. They were ordered to pay $300,000 in damages for psychological harm and defamation. But true justice came later. As their lives unraveled, Daniel lost his job when his employer learned of the charges. No one hires someone convicted of abusing their adoptive father. Emily was banned from working with minors or the elderly, ending her teaching career. Their cheap apartment was foreclosed when they couldn't pay the mortgage without jobs. Friends abandoned them as the story went viral. Even their families were ashamed to be linked to them. Meanwhile, I thrived in my new life. My Seattle condo became my sanctuary, kind neighbors, top-notch medical care, endless cultural activities, and, most importantly, peace. I joined 3 clubs, one for books, one for gardening, one for investments. I met wonderful people who valued me without hidden motives. With my secret funds, I remodeled the Montana farm into a guest house for elderly people, abandoned by their families, a place of dignity, respect, and genuine care. The irony was poetic. The home Daniel wanted to steal became a haven for victims like me, where no one would be treated as a burden. 6 months after the trial, I received a letter from Daniel in prison, a pathetic attempt at manipulation filled with false apologies. "Dear Dad," it began. "I've had time to reflect on my mistakes. I see now I misjudged the situation, maybe pushed too hard for you to move. But it came from love, from wanting to protect you." Each line was more deceitful than the last, trying to rewrite his crimes as misunderstandings. I know you can find it in your heart to forgive your son who erred but always loved you. When I'm out, I want to rebuild our bond. Show I'm the son you deserve. It ended with a desperate plea. Please visit. I need to see you, to show this was a misunderstanding we can overcome. My reply was brief and final. Monsters don't get second chances. I never contacted him again. Now, a year after that night, I saw them burying documents. I live the most fulfilling life I've had in decades. I have true friends, exciting projects, financial security, and something I hadn't had in years, complete self-respect. My guest house shelters 16 elders mistreated by their families. Each story differs, but all share a common thread: relatives who saw their age as an opportunity, not wisdom. This experience taught me something vital. True love doesn't demand self-destruction. Kindness doesn't mean tolerating abuse. Protecting yourself isn't selfish. It's survival. I don't regret adopting Daniel, only that I didn't realize sooner that kindness shouldn't cost self-respect. That love doesn't mean surrendering dignity. That being a father doesn't mean being a victim. At 72, I've never felt more powerful, respected, or alive. Daniel thought my age was my weakness. It turned out to be my greatest strength. An elderly man with nothing left to lose is the most dangerous force in the universe. If you enjoyed my story, you can support me with a super thanks to help me share more like it. Thank you so much. What would you do in my place? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. I'm always curious about your opinions. And let me know where you heard this story. For more stories like this, like the video and subscribe to the Revenge with Thomas channel. Plenty more await you. A big hug, and until next time,